Les Boston Celtics sont champions NBA pour la 18e fois de leur histoire. Et pour fêter ça, on a proposé de vous proposer un petit podcast avec Jack Simone du CelticsBlog qui était du coup sur place à Boston pour le Game 5, qui a pu suivre ça du coup dans les coulisses, qui était là aux conférences de presse, qui a pu voir les confettis et tout ça. Et on a échangé avec lui du coup sur ce match-là. Aussi sur du coup le Game 7 de l'année dernière contre le Heat qui s'était fini sur une défaite et du coup la différence un petit peu entre ces deux fins de saison et puis même des sujets un peu différents sur les Celtics, le futur des Celtics, comment lui il a vécu aussi la saison de l'intérieur et tout son travail sur le Celtics blog et justement avec de très bons articles, notamment un sur les coachs du player development. Donc voilà, je vous laisse découvrir tout ça. Bonne écoute à tous et à bientôt. Hello, Jack. Thank you for being with us today on the podcast Le Trèfle, a French podcast. So maybe a first time for you being on an international podcast. First of all, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate you. How are you doing?
Pretty well, pretty tired.
Yeah.
It's been short nights following the games live, but it's been good. Very happy that the season is over this way, and yeah, looking forward to what's next. Maybe for the people in France that doesn't know you yet, if you could like introduce yourself for people that still need to get to know you.
Yeah. So my name is Jack Simone. I cover the Celtics for CelticsBlog, which is an SB Nation website. And I do a podcast with Sam LaFrance called How About Them Celtics. So we do that every day. And yeah, it's fun covering the team. I get to cover them in person. It's my second year covering the team in person. And it was a nice way to end my second year because they managed to win the title. So that's pretty good.
So you were in Boston last year when they lost Game 7 against the Heat.
Yeah, I was there for that. It was significantly less fun than being there for this year.
Like, what was the feeling like last year after the Game 7 loss? Like, what was like? Because everything seems to be like complicated. Like this loss after like getting back from like 3-0 against the Miami, being so close to the final. Did you feel something was ending? Like, because after that we got all the Marcus Smart trade and everything. So did you feel something was broken a little bit during that time?
Yeah, it was weird. Before the game, it was great vibes, and then as soon as Tatum turned his ankle, like the entire building kind of went silent for the rest of the game. And then afterwards, you could kind of feel like I don't even know, like just the vibes from the players during their press conferences kind of felt like that they knew something was going to change, and it kind of felt like something did need to change, and evidently it did, and it worked out in the end. But it just did. It kind of felt melancholy, like very sad, very disappointed after the game. So I think based on that, you could tell something needed to change.
Yeah, and after the Game 7, like the press conferences must have been so different compared to this year. Because it
Oh yeah.
was there even press conferences after the Game 7 last year? Or, like, what
Mhm.
did you even talk about like after Game 7 losses?
Yeah, I mean, it was just talk about the disappointment, the end of the season. Jalen Brown had a press conference. I think Tatum did too. I think Marcus probably did.
Hmm.
And it was just, what happened. Couldn't get the job done. Tatum talked about his injury a little bit. Jalen Brown talked about his game this summer. It was just like very different vibes, obviously, than this year. And it was basically just disappointment. Like you could tell they were all upset. You could tell they were all disappointed in what they couldn't accomplish. And yeah, it was just kind of very sad. Not good vibes after the
Yeah,
game.
definitely. And compared to this year, because this year during the playoff, I think they lose only 3 times. Did you
Mhm.
feel like, for example, first loss against the Miami Heat? Did you feel any type of like sense of like people being like, oh, here we go again, like Miami getting making threes, playing like okay defense, and maybe Joe Mazzulla didn't adjust like during the games, but he did during game 3. So did you feel any type of like fear after like the game 2 loss?
I think from the fan base, definitely.
Yeah.
Like you could tell the fans were a little nervous. I don't think the players were worried at all. I think they
Okay.
were totally confident and totally like sure of themselves that okay, that happened. It is what it is. We can bounce back. We can move on. And then they just blew them out the rest of the series. I think the players in Joe Mazzulla knew like we can adjust a few things, but our game plan works, and they're not going to shoot that well from three every time again. And they didn't, so they're like it paid off. Um, but I don't think the Celtics were nervous during this playoff run a single time.
Yeah, even after game 4 in Dallas. You were in Dallas,
No,
right?
I was in Dallas. Yeah, I don't think after the loss in the Heat, Cavs, or Mavs series, I don't think the Celtics were nervous once, and I think that's a part of the reason why they won. It's because they were so confident in themselves, so sure of themselves that they could win, and that nobody that was in front of them could beat them in a 7-game series. That even when they did lose, they knew that they could just bounce back, and that's what they did every time.
And do you think it's because of the opponent that they got during the stretch? I feel like some of the opponent that could have been didn't, and then like the opponent they did get with the injuries and all of that also could help. Do you think like this confidence was like unbreakable, or do you see some teams that could have maybe broke something out of the team?
I think the confidence would have been there regardless of their opponent. Obviously, I think the Celtics got a little lucky with injury luck. I mean, Jimmy Butler wasn't healthy. Donovan Mitchell, Tyrese Halliburton missed time. Luka was kind of hurt in the playoffs, but he was on the court, so no one's going to count that. They obviously got a little bit lucky in that regard, and I don't think you can avoid that, but that's kind of how the playoffs work. Like, people get hurt every year. The Celtics did their job. They could only play the people who were in front of them, and they got the job done. And so you credit them regardless, because you could put an asterisk next to any championship you want. If you look at that, like the Nuggets played 2 playing teams last year. The Lakers were in the bubble. The Bucks played, a Nets team that got injured in the second round. Like every single year you could do that type of thing. And so the Celtics got the job done, but their opponents were obviously easier than what you might have expected. But I think you could have put the Nuggets, a healthy Bucks team, or a Sixers team in front of them, and the Celtics still would have been confident in themselves.
And yourself, you would have been confident against Denver or any other team, or do you see weaknesses in that team that could have been exploited by other teams?
I think Denver would have been a tougher series, obviously, than Dallas. I think um, Minnesota probably would have been tougher than Dallas as well. I think the Bucks and Phillies would have been good series, but I think the Celtics were the best team in the league this year, regardless. I think they would have won any series they played against any opponent.
Yeah, and did you feel that confidence, and did you see that team being that good? When did it click for you? Because at the start of the season, like on paper, it looked perfect, but then you're like,
Yeah.
Alford is getting older. Drew might not be as easy to use in that system that he was at the Bucks. Porzingis might be injured. We didn't add Tillman back in those days too, so we wouldn't know like this could happen. Like when did you like? Can you think about a time during the season that you thought, yeah, they are going to do it, or at least you feel like really confident about them winning the title?
That's a good question. I don't know if there was a game in the regular season that I could point to and say, okay, yeah, they're definitely going to win the title. That Warriors game where they blew out the Warriors by 50, that was kind of like, oh wow, like this team is for real. So maybe you got a little hint of it then.
Yeah.
That was pretty relatively late in the season, and then I guess in the playoffs. I don't remember what game it was, but Drew Holiday had a monster game. I think it might have been the first Pacers game. Um, he put up like 28. He had like a 28-point playoff game. Yeah, he had 28 in game 1 against the Pacers. As soon as they scraped by and beat the Pacers by like whatever many points in overtime, Jaylen Brown hit that buzzer beater and Drew Holiday put up 28. I was kind of like, oh wow, I think they're good. I think they're probably gonna win the title this year. Like I think that point I was the most confident I was like up to that point in the season.
I think the way they used Holiday through the playoff, and especially against the Pacers, kind of unlocked something new that I didn't see much during the playoff. It's like we saw some like flashes of Holiday being used as a safety on defense and used as like a screener, like like a role man, pretty much like on pick and roll, doing short one and all that. But we saw that even more during like the Pacers series and even in the finals. I feel like they unlock things during the playoff that we didn't see during the regular season. And the drive, like the number of times they drive against Dallas, is way bigger than what they done during the playoff and during the rest of the playoff and the regular season. Do you think like they had, like they knew they could do some other stuff that they've done during the regular season, and they kind of kept in hidden from the lights just to use it? Not that they, it's not a script.
No, yeah.
I know Joe Mazzulla is a big like movie fan, but he can't write like this type of scenario. But still, like I feel like they had more margin, and more like tools than I thought they did.
Yeah, I think the good thing about Drew Holiday is he's just so comfortable doing anything the team needs. And so I think once it got to the playoffs and offenses naturally bogged down, defenses were like less willing to give up certain shots. They like the Mavs played a style of defense where they protected the paint at all times, and so they were very much clogging the lane. The Pacers aren't the best defensive team, but even they did a pretty good job of sort of forcing the Celtics into slow possessions and scoring a lot. So the Celtics, had to go up against a set defense every time too in that Indy series. And Drew Holiday just sort of, he almost played his free safety role on offense as well, where he was just kind of roaming around. He kind of just filled the gaps. Played in the dunker spot a little bit, was setting screens and rolling, like you mentioned. He just kind of did everything and was everywhere to the point where the Celtics could always almost kick it to him as a safety valve, and he would make something happen. And so I think having a guy like that who's capable of doing that is super useful. As to why they didn't do it as much during the regular season, I feel like it was just kind of like they didn't have to, and so they didn't, and that was a benefit because they could just break it out in the playoffs, and then it ended up working out pretty well. So I mean, I think he's just the type of guy who's willing and able to do whatever a team needs, and you can't put a price on a guy like that.
Yeah, and maybe going more like on what you see from the inside sometimes. Like, do you see, for example, during practice, because you can go to some of the practice and the shoot around, like, do you see things that they work on a lot, things that they have emphasized during the training that you show, like that you saw also during the playoffs?
Yeah, so we unfortunately don't get to watch a ton of practice. We get to like watch them shoot around after practice, but the Celtics don't let media watch like the actual practice because they don't want people filming it and putting it on Twitter, because if it gets on Twitter, then other teams are going to see it on Twitter, and so we're not allowed to watch like the real practice. But all we really get to see is them shooting around. So I'll see like Jaylen Brown practicing free throws. You'll see Pritchard and Sam Hauser doing 3-point shooting drills. You'll see Xavier Tillman working in the post, but like you won't see any of the actual in-depth stuff, unfortunately. But it makes sense because they probably don't want that leaking to other teams.
Yeah, I mean, like if you, and especially because they don't have that many practices, it must be like emphasized on one of the main thing they want to work on. And also from the inside, what was it like in the Garden, like during this game 5? Like, did you, like, what time did you arrive? If you can like walk, because I was lucky enough to be there and to have you as my guide, and that was the best, because I would have been lost without you. And like I got to experience the whole thing, to be in the press conference, even ask questions, because you told me I could ask questions, so I was like, might as well do it. But yeah, for like all the other people that never been there and wasn't there during game 5, like what was it like, if you can like walk us through this special evening?
Yeah, I mean, I always get to the game super early so I can stand by the court. So I got to the game, I think I got there around like 3:30. I went out to the court around 4:30. I just did some work in the back, and then they allowed us by the court. And so I sat by the court for a while at 4:30 for a couple hours. I just watched the Stay Ready guys work, like, Jordan Walsh, Nimish Keita, Steve Mikhailou. You watch them practice and put some shots up. Then at like 6:45, you went to the press conferences. Joe and Jason Kidd talked. And then my seat was upstairs, so I went upstairs to the 9th floor to sit. Ate some dinner, got settled, and then the game started obviously around 8:30, and the building was so unbelievably loud at tip-off. Crowd was into it. Every basket, they were screaming. I think they kind of knew, like, these guys got a real chance to do it. One up pretty big in the second quarter, and then it was loud at the start of the game. It was loud after the game. The loudest I've ever heard the Garden was when Peyton Pritchard made the half court shot. It was louder when he made that shot at halftime, heading into halftime, than it was when they won the title after the game. It was insane. Like everybody, all the Celtics fans knew, like, oh my gosh, he did it again. That's insane. And so they were screaming. And then obviously after the game, they started screaming again. They were hyped up. The players on the court, you could see, were just, all the emotions came out. There was so much confetti. It was great
so
vibes.
much confetti.
It was
At
a
some
lot.
point, I was like, is something broken on my TV? Or is just like they went berserk because it's been 14 years and they had too many
Yeah.
confettis to use?
There was a lot of confetti. It was a lot. And then a lot of media like stayed at the Garden a while. I wasn't in the locker room for the celebration, unfortunately. I don't have that access, but some guys did get to go in there and watch and sort of, experience that and cover it. I sat in the press conferences after the game, talked to some of the players. All the starting five talked, plus Al Horford. So like Al and Porzingis and the rest of the starters, those guys are brought to the podium. And then after the game, I stayed at the Garden until really late. I was there till like 5:30 in the morning, just working and experiencing it and taking it all in. So a lot of beat writers did the same, and it was a great night. It was a really cool experience.
Because I saw some picture, like some of the like people, even Joe Mazzulla, came back to the court at some point during the night. Like feel like the court was still open, not to play basketball, but just like to experience it.
Yeah, Joe Mazzulla and his wife were walking around the court at like 3:30. They were just kind of like taking it all in and experiencing it. Jaylen Brown came back out by the court like a little while later, just like said hi to Mike Zarin, who's a GM, and I think that might be it. I think Al Horford came back a little bit as well because they were out partying at like a club in Boston, which is close to the Garden, but a couple guys came back to say what's up.
That's nice. That must be special. Plus, like it's nice to have the time to settle in the Garden. I feel very lucky, and probably feel the same. Like there is like 2, 3, 4 different type of like ambiance within the Garden, and having the opportunity to be there before and after on the court, doing like all the empty seats. Like sometimes it feels like very theatrical, like cinema is like there is different type of life within the Garden, and having to experience that, it takes more sense because what you see on TV, it's always crowded, and when you see it empty, it feels so big. Because when there is so many people within, it's like it feels crowded, like you can't really see what's going on. But when it's empty, you realize like the court size is very small, and also the room is huge. So that's been quite impressive. And then like for you, like, and what do you see for the team even like coming up next? Because like it's like I think Brad Stevens said like there is a long road ahead. Talking to Holiday and Brian Scalabrine, like Brad Stevens seems to not be satisfied with. I mean, he seems to be happy that they won, but it seems like he wants more. Do you see like the team being the same next year, or do you see maybe the team having like a bit of things to change? Because as we said, like they are the champion, but maybe against like other team, you would have seen like weaknesses that we didn't already see, but that Brad Stevens might be aware of.
Yeah, I think there's a report after the game from ESPN that they're bringing the whole core back. So I think you'll definitely see Drew Holiday, Jaylen Brown, Kristaps Porzingis, Al Horford back next year. Mark Stein also reported that Tatum and Derek White are going to get extensions done probably next week. And so the whole top six is going to be back. Peyton Pritchard's under contract. He'll be back. Sam Hauser has one more year left on his deal. He'll be back. I think the only real like question marks is, Luke Cornett, Xavier Tillman, Nemish Queta. Like, are they going to bring all three of those big guys back? Are they going to focus on one or two and then draft somebody? Like, how is that going to work? Probably like Svi Mikhailuk might be gone. O'Shea Brissett is a player option that he'll almost definitely pick up, so he'll probably be back. Jordan Walsh will be back because he's under contract. The two-way guys could shift around a little bit, but I think for the most part, you're going to see almost the same exact team.
Okay, you don't see them trying to like build a trade, I don't know, around Pritchard because his contract is easy to move, or maybe around Porzingis because he's going to be like he's injured, so he's gonna have to go
Yeah.
through an operation. Like, do you see a trade happening during the summer, or if something changed, that will be like maybe before the trade deadline and not before?
I don't think so. I think they'll keep both those guys. I think the Porzingis injury they'll feel out for another year. I don't think they would trade him right after they won a title. I think they'll help him rehab and then figure it out from there. And then Pritchard, I think, is on too valuable of a contract, like based on how talented he is, to trade that in another deal. And so I think he'll be around too.
Yeah, even though, because what's kind of the feeling towards Pritchard is like during the regular season, he brings values because he's able to play that role in that spacing. But at the same time, you see minutes in the playoff where you're like, you can't really put him on the court because he's too much of a liability on defense. Not because it's not good at playing defense, just because
Yeah.
of his size, pretty much. Because he's a pretty crafty defender and he's trying a lot. He has a lot of hustle and energy, but sometimes just like is just a smaller person. Do you think that would be a problem, or do you think like they are okay to paying him, and sometimes don't pay him like they did? Like in the game 5, he played literally 3 seconds, which was pretty much efficient, but
Yeah.
that's the only time he played. And like in the finals, I think his average time per game was divided by 2 compared to like the previous rounds in the regular season. So he has some weaknesses that needs either to be addressed, or maybe they're just fine with it.
I think they're pretty okay with it. I think they'd rather just ride it out with him. I think they're confident in his ability to score the ball, hustle on defense, try his best. There were some moments in the playoffs where he was still able to hold up
Yeah.
and at least hold his own with Luka and those guys. So I think they're confident with him, and he's not making a lot of money at all, like I mentioned. So I don't think you'd be able to find too much else for that contract, even combined with other stuff that would be worth more to them than Pritchard was this season. Plus, he can carry the load if other guys need to miss time too, because I think he's probably a lot better than the role they have him in. So I don't see him going anywhere.
Yeah. Okay. So it's pretty much like going up with the same team. The bigger question being
I
like,
think so.
what's going to happen like for Cornet, Keta, and I don't know
Yeah.
if Stillman will be able to stay too. I think like he has like a player option, or is it a team option? But yeah, there is like the backups of Orford and Porzingis are the big question mark, and for the rest, they'll be pretty much the same.
Yeah. So Tillman and Cornette are both going to be free agents this summer. As is Svi Mikhailou. Those are the only guys who are going to be free agents. Drew Peterson and JD Davison too, but they're two-way players, so I'll not include them for now. Kata has a team option. Jaden Springer has a team option. Sam Hauser has a team option. O'Shea Brissett has a player option, all for next year. So it's going to be Cornette, Svi Mikhailou, and Tillman, who the Celtics would have to bring back if they want to bring them back. I would guess they probably bring or maybe 1 out of the 3 back, maybe 2 out of the 3. But it's just going to matter who they want to keep. Do they want to keep Kata around? Do they want to keep Tillman, Cornette? I don't know if they keep all 3 of those bigs, but we'll see. Anything can happen, I guess.
Yeah, and talking about maybe change and humans that you've met during the year, I think one of your best pieces, or at least maybe the most known, was the one you did on the 5 development coaches that you published during the playoff. Before asking like who might leave or who might stay, like can you maybe walk us through like the process of like getting those articles done and meeting them? Because like there's pretty much like the people you see when you say you sit next to the court with the stay ready guy, they are the guy that are with them pretty much doing like video reviews or doing some drills before the games, while Jason Tatum, Derek White, and all that, they are not even arrived at the TD Garden yet. They're still like on their way in, while those guys are already like doing the work. So yeah, can you walk us through like this article, and I'll make sure to share the link again with everyone, because those are some nice pieces from people that have a huge impact on the Boston team, but nobody really knows them and their names. So that's also nice to have a piece to make a name on those faces.
Definitely. Yeah. So I wrote a big article on each of the guys and then also like a landing page
Yeah.
article kind of where it all connects to. So I wrote one on Jermaine Buckner. I wrote one on Tyler Lashbrook, Ross McMains, Craig Lucianette, and Phil Pressey, who's a former Celtic that people probably know. And yeah, I reached out to a bunch of people around the world who know these guys, whether it's former players who played under them, whether it's former coaches who coach with them, whether it's like close friends or trainers or stuff like that. I reached out to a bunch of different people for these articles or fans even, and it all came out really well. I was very happy
Yeah.
with it. I got the chance to like talk to all of them afterwards too. Like they all came up to me, like Jermaine Buckner. People call him Buck. He came up to me after the game. I actually talked to him after they won the championship too, and like me, him, and Noah Dalzell, who some Celtics fans might know too. She writes for CelticsBlog as well. Like just talked to him for like 5 minutes. He was obviously very happy because they just won, but like it was a cool moment because he's just the nicest guy on the planet. Ross came up to me after the articles came out, said thank you. Craig, who is another awesome guy who I've gotten to know this season, he said thank you. Phil did the same, and then I didn't catch up with Tyler until Dallas, actually, like the finals. Like I didn't get a chance to talk to him until then. And he came up to me. He said, thank you. We talked for a little bit, but it was just a cool moment because those guys do so much work that people don't get to see, you know, working with the Stay Ready guys, with like Springer, with Svi. Like Jermaine Buckner is like Tillman's, one of Tillman's lead coaches. He works with him a lot. Ross McMains works really close with Steve Mikhailou. Craig works really close with Sam Hauser. Tyler works really close with Jaden Springer. Phil Pressey kind of works with everybody, and he's a big film guy on the bench for them. So like they obviously work with like everybody, but every player development coaches has like their guys, and so it was just really cool to like watch them work and get to write about them and sort of shed light on how they got to where they are.
Especially because they've been like kind of in the dark even during their career. But
Yeah.
most of them have been back in Europe, like playing in Spain, in Belgium, and small clubs. And it's nice for them to have some lights, well-deserved lights on a very good website. And it was very well written, like deep work. And which is also important is like they like the stay ready guy are not the same during the season. Lamar Stevens had to leave. They're on Benton too. So it's like they are helping guys that are in a like not very stable situation with insecurity when it comes to contract and career. And it's like not only they help the team, they help like those humans that are, you know, in kind of not the stable situation. So I feel like the work is even like less see, but most important because they like it's nice to humanize like the people that are behind the bars kind of, and that nobody see only if you go actually like during the game, like before the pre-work. That was pretty cool. And do you have any other like big articles or like, you know, stories that you're working on at the moment? Like what are the summer plan, you know, that the Celtics have won the title?
Oh man, I need to think about it. There's a couple things I got in the works. I haven't like really fleshed them out yet, so I don't really know how like what exactly it's gonna be. But I've got a couple things turning in the gears. You gotta
Okay.
always stay active. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely. And will you like be in Europe for the Olympics, or are you gonna stay in the US for the summer?
I think I'll probably stay in the US. I don't think I'll make it out to Paris, unfortunately. Although that'd be really cool. We'll see. You never know where it leads. I'm going to Vegas for Summer League already, so
Oh,
I don't
nice.
know how much more travel budget I've got after the playoffs too. The wallet might be running thin a little bit, so I don't know. I don't know about Paris, but hey, if the stars align, maybe that'd be a great experience.
Well, you let me know because
Oh
I'll
yeah,
definitely come to Paris if that
I will.
happens. And other question maybe related to like the north side of the US, but will you also cover maybe a bit of WNBA? Is that something you have like because there is a pretty good team close to
Yeah.
Boston, like the Connecticut Sun. I just started following the WNBA this year. I was starting to write about them. I wrote about the Connecticut Sun, their offense in particular. Is this something that you also want to cover, or is like the focus on the Celtics is already taking so much time that you don't really have much room to work on
Yeah.
other topic.
Yeah, I don't have a platform to write about the WNBA right now. Like I don't write for any WNBA site or cover them for anybody yet. I mean, WNBA is awesome. I've been trying to follow more, like you mentioned, myself lately. I watched a little bit last season. I'm gonna try to watch more this summer. I've been so engulfed in the Celtics playoff run that I haven't really had the chance to sit down and watch much yet. But
Yeah,
I mean, the sport is awesome. Like you mentioned, the Sun are great. Alyssa Thomas is awesome. You see these teams getting picked for the Olympics. Like there's just so much talent, and so it's a great, I mean, product, and people should be watching it. And so I need to start playing catch up after the finals run because
definitely.
gotta get ready.
And especially as someone that watched a lot of men basketball, when watching women's basketball, I feel like the tactical aspect of it, like having like a good systemic approach, it feels bigger on the women and the WNBA side. Like I don't know, I see more system, I see less isolation and all of that. So I think even for people that want to learn a bit more or to like understand tactics, WNBA is a wonderful place to start, and there is some great character, there is some great stories, great rivalry, like everything, like all the storytelling plus the product as a sport is there, and you just have to go for it. And it's way cheaper to follow than the NBA, because like the league pass for
It's true.
for the NBA in Europe, it's like €1.50 per year, and for the WNBA it's like €40. So it's like €40 is like you can spend that on a beer during white night sometimes. So like might as well, pay up,
Yeah,
go and watch
exactly.
some sport, and that if one day you find a platform to write about like the WNBA, I'll be happy to follow.
Appreciate that.
Um, I think that's a wrap. We talked about the
Cool.
season, we talked about the insights, we talked about what comes next. So I think that's it. Thank you very much, Jack. If you want to add anything, feel free to go for it. And if not, we'll see you next year, maybe on the podcast.
Yeah, I don't think anything else. I mean, like I mentioned, my written work's on CelticsBlog. My podcast is How About Them Celtics, and I appreciate you having me on the show. I'll be back anytime. Thank you.
Yeah, all right. See you in Boston, maybe.
Yes, sir. Hopefully, you'll be back. Come on.
Et voilà pour le petit entretien, pour le petit podcast vidéo avec Jack, du coup. J'espère que ça vous aura plu. Retrouvez tous ces articles sur le CelticsBlog, du coup, et beaucoup d'autres articles de très bonne facture. Et vous pouvez aussi aller le suivre, du coup, sur Twitter, Jack Simone. Je mettrai tous les liens en description, et puis voilà. Et nous, on se retrouve potentiellement bientôt pour d'autres vidéos ou d'autres podcasts. Je ne sais pas trop encore, donc on vous garde les surprises. À bientôt.